Hi, I'm Ken Coleman, and I'm joined by my colleague, Dr. John Delony, and we're here to have a conversation about mental health in the workplace. And to that end, John, you've got 5 key actions that you want companies to take to show their employees support for their mental health. The first one, you say, be present.
Yes.
Now, how does a leader do that? What does that look like?
So let's back up a little bit. When you and I first entered the workforce 200 or 300 years ago, right? Here was the rule of thumb. You leave your home drama at home. If you don't feel good, you're feeling low, you're feeling anxious, wah. That's for you and whatever psychologist you need to go see. Get your butt to work and do your job. Those days, Ken, are over. Those days are over. People are showing up for the last place on earth that will say, I love you, I see you, I'll take care of you. That's the workplace. And they're saying, I need help, right? So leaders have to start with being present. They got to show up. They have to provide opportunities to have human interaction with their teams. This can be as simple as office hours. This can be as simple as just walking around and saying hi, learning people's faces, learning people's names. Our boss, our leaders, Dave Ramsey, there's this great stories about him going through notebooks full of pictures of staff members because he was trying to memorize them just because it feels amazing when the supervisor, the leader sees you and says, hey, and he uses your name, right? Something powerful like that. Something a little more formal like weekly one-on-one meetings, right? Just sitting down and saying, how are you? I see you, I hear you, right? You have to create a culture that says, I'm available, I'm here for all of what's going on in your life, right? Now, you and I have talked privately.
Yep.
What are the 2 big stressors that employees keep showing up with that a leader can step in right away and help be a solution for?
Yeah, I love this. There are 2 stressors that we see showing up in all the data when people leave companies. Mm-hmm. They are recognition and resources. The first one, we talk about recognition, John, we're talking about, do I feel seen and heard? Because that's essentially what they're asking, and they don't even know they're asking. It's, do I feel like my leader cares about me, cares about my opinion? These are real human things that stay with us since we were little kids. Hey, mom, dad, do you notice me? Do you love me is what the kid's asking. The employee's saying, do you value me? Do you care that I'm here? So recognition is really important. And you touched on that weekly meeting, just simply asking questions like, hey, how's everything going in your life? This is not a prying over the boundary question. It's just, hey, how you doing? Because they're a person first, a worker second. And then you're asking, hey, how can I help you win in your job? That leads to that second stressor, resources. It's unbelievable, John, how many people cite resources. In other words, they didn't have the training or tools to do their job. That comes up at the top of every list as the top stressor at work. So as a leader being present, what do they need to actually win in their job? And if you help them with that, chances are their mental health has got a shot at being pretty healthy.
And let's not over dramatize it. Sometimes as a leader, it's simply walking down a hallway and you see an employee walking by and you just stop them.
Yep.
And you say, I heard from your direct supervisor, you are doing an amazing job. Thank you for the contribution to our team. They'll walk on clouds,
That's
right?
exactly right?
Or to sit down and go, hey, I know you've been 2 people short for the last 4 months. I've got the hires on the docket now. We see you. Please hang in there. Right? Just something simple like that. It's not dramatic. It doesn't have to be a fireworks show. It's just a leader saying, I see you, I hear you, and we're trying to make it right.
Yeah, see, I love that. And that leads to your second point. You say, be a good listener. And the example you just gave in the hallway, to me, is a great example of being a good listener. You heard them, but then you acted on that. Why is this such a key point, and why do you put it that way? Hey, leaders, be good listeners. What's going on?
We have a culture where we have stopped listening to one another, right? To quote a famous movie that I love, we just wait for our turn to speak, right? We're thinking about our response while somebody else is talking. And what we do is we miss the human interaction. We miss the engagement. So what I'm asking people to do when I say listen is be engaged. What does that look like in real life? Put your phone down. Step away from the laptop. Close it. Look at somebody. At teams I've led before, one of the first things I would do when I would go into a new team is I would say, you have to shift your desks so you're not talking across the desk to somebody. It's a barrier. It's a power differential. Someone comes in and says, hey, I'm struggling, and they've got to launch their concern over a big desk at you sitting back like that. Man, open up. It could be ecological, like the way the room is. It could be how you lean forward and you're attentively paying attention to somebody, right? But it's all about, as we talked earlier, Do you see me and do you hear me?
Yes.
Do you know what I'm going through?
Yeah. And do something about it.
Yes.
And true listening is I receive and now I'm going to do, and people know that you care for them.
Here's one critical mistake that I see leaders make all over the place. Making promises they can't keep. Something simple like, do you promise you won't tell? Yeah, I promise I won't tell. Man, you just backed yourself into a corner. They may tell you something illegal. They may tell you that someone's about to take their own life. They may tell you any number of things, and you have just opened up a room and said, I am 100% safe. You can't do that, right? So sometimes when somebody sits down and says, hey, I've never told anybody this before, I will stop them and say, I might not be the right person for you to tell for the first time. When someone says, you promise you won't tell, I usually say, I can't make that promise. I'll do the best I can, but I can't make that promise. And so we want to be honest. We want to be open. We want to encourage listening. And sometimes the greatest listening we can do is just enough to say, whoa, I'm over my head. You need to go get some professional help. Here's some time away from the office. You can go get that done.
That leads to the third thing that you recommend, and I love this advice. You say that leaders have got to model their own healthy mental health routines. If they see you taking care of your mental health, what does that do for them?
All right, so here's a real life example of this from my life. I got hired by a guy in Pennsylvania. He was moving to Texas. I was moving to a new university. We all landed at the same time. We were sitting around a table and we were engaged in what was a pretty heated conversation. There was several of us around a table and we were all trying to impress the new boss too, right? We want him to think we were dedicated. We're gonna stay all night. We're gonna solve this problem. And around 5 o'clock, we're in it. We are in it. And his name was Jean-Noel Thompson. Dr. Thompson gets up and we're still engaging and he's talking back and we're going back and forth and he grabs his bag and then he goes over to his coat rack and grabs his coat and starts heading out the door. And the room kind of gets quiet and just follows him as he leaves. And he turns and sees us all looking at him and all perplexed. And he smiled real big. And this made such an impression on me, Ken. He smiled at us all real big and says, oh, I love you guys. But he pointed towards his house and he said, I love them more. Somebody turn out the light, we'll pick this up tomorrow. And he walked out the door. And for all of us in that room, we all went, our families are more important than whatever's going on here. Being home for dinner is more important than solving something that's going to be another dramatic thing the next week, another thing the next week. It really set the tone. It was him listening to us, hearing us, seeing us, and saying, this is important. I'm out of here. Yeah. And it changed the whole direction of our team.
Well, I love the story, and it really plays this out. You said leaders need to model the way.
That's right.
He modeled it, and that leads to your fourth point. Because he modeled it, you all walked away, I think, with some permission to prioritize your own family. And you say that companies need to give employees permission to prioritize their own mental health. Again, sounds really good, but I think there's a lack of trust among employees and their leaders. How does a company get the employee to the point where they go, I do, in fact, have permission to say, I need help?
Right. I think, again, we started with listening, right? We are modeling, yep. And then the rubber's got to meet the road, yep. Right? And so you and I were talking earlier about the great basketball coach, Dean Smith,
yes.
Right? Who gave his players a hand signal. You guys are in the best shape of your lives. Y'all are working hard. You know everything, and you're going so hard. And then you get a little bit tired and your feet slow down a little bit. I don't want you on the floor being a liability for our team. So I trust that you are working hard in practice. I trust that you know the plays, and I trust you to tell me, hey, coach, I need a breather. And they would give the coach a signal. He'd pull them out. He trusted them. They trusted him. And what it allowed the players to do was not hold back, thinking if coach sees that I'm tired, he's going to pull me out. They went full tilt all the time. Yep. And then when they said, coach, I'm out of gas, he pulled them out, they got a breather, and they got right back in there. Bosses, leaders, supervisors, we have to provide that same thing for our team.
Yeah, I love that. And, what you just said is such a beautiful picture, because that is a championship program, one of the greatest programs in the history of basketball. And the performance is based on that trust.
That's right. Here's something that's very important. Often, if I bring something to my supervisor, I've got to be at home for this thing. I've got to do this thing. As a leader, it's easy to feel stuck because this unit of production has to go out Friday. This report has to be done here. And so sometimes it's a context, not an excuse. Sometimes I might tell somebody, you can go home at noon today. The project still has to be on my desk at 5 on Friday. If you can't get it done, I need you to rally a couple of team members together. We got to solve this problem, but I still honor you, right? So it's not a matter of just a free-for-all and letting employees do this and this and this. That means going way upstream. We got to cross-train our teammates. We can't do things in isolation. We have to trust one another. And I, as an employee, have to prepare for the when, not if, something sideways is going to happen in my life. I'm real bad, Ken, about procrastinating to the last possible second. I got to get better about doing things along the way so that when my kid gets sick, when my wife needs to go to the doctor's office, whatever's going on, I can still meet my deadlines. It's a context, not an excuse.
Yeah, there's a theme in these 4 points that we've already discussed, and it comes to a head here in the 5th point. This isn't about talking, this is about doing.
Right.
And the 5th point is you have got to, as a company, provide the support and resources that your team needs to be able to take care of their mental health. This is beyond talk. This is really about commitment and showing up. What does that look like?
So again, I want to circle back to something I said right at the beginning. Leaders and bosses and supervisors are not therapists. And so when I say you've got to provide resources, I don't mean that you become the staff marriage therapist, right? And somebody tells you that they're struggling, they're maybe considering hurting themselves. You stop everything and you call 911, right? So getting resources is possibly partnering with a local counseling center or health insurance or time away or whatever. At the place where you and I work at Ramsey Solutions, we get a week off for ministry time, for serving our communities, right? And so there's all different kinds of ways to support employees. Another great way, you and I talk all the time about the physiological burden, the psychological stress of owing people money. When your body recognizes that Ford Motor Company can take your transportation away or Sally Mae can take your house away, it's never gonna let you sleep all the way. It's never gonna let you be fully present with somebody because it's trying to preserve itself. It's trying to not die, right? So if you don't owe anybody any money, your body goes, just a little bit, right? So there are great resources like SmartDollar through Ramsey Solutions. There's all kinds of programs and ways that supervisors and leaders can support their teammates. Here's the thing. You gotta put it on paper. You gotta support them. You gotta announce it to your team, and then you gotta walk the talk.
Yeah. Well, John, it's a good word, and the resources that you need are available to you right now, especially when it comes to your employees' financial situation, which has impact on everything in their life and certainly their mental health. For more of those resources, we're standing by ready for you right now. Go to SmartDollar.com. Again, that's SmartDollar.com.